Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Spilling the Beans. Today I'm sitting down with my buddy Carlos Reyes here in Scottsdale, Arizona. We are going to be talking about all things entrepreneurship. Carlos has scaled multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses at the same time, which is not an easy feat to do. So how do you do that and stay focused? Let's go spill the beans with him and Annabelle. Carlos Reyes, dude.
What's up, brother?
Dude, super proud to have you here,
Yes,
man.
sir.
An absolute honor to have you here. And welcome to Spilling the Beans. Although today we're spilling some vodka and whiskey.
Let's go.
Dude, I'm here in Arizona, hanging out with you. I've had a ton of respect for you for a long time.
Thank you, brother.
And we've known each other for several years. Got to meet in person, about a year or two ago. And then, stayed in touch on a lot of things. So what I'd love to do is share a little bit about your story, kind of your origin story, about how you got started in entrepreneurship. But really, I love what you're working on right now. I love that you're working on really the private equity space and building up businesses and then scaling those. And I want to spend a lot of the meat and potatoes on that. But I think it's really important to be like, hey, here's where I come from. So share a little bit about your story, man.
Real quick, I'll keep it at like 3 to 5 minutes, right? Because I do want to spill the beans on everything we got going on.
That's it, bud.
I just want to teach people how they can actually, pretty much do the same thing we got going on. There's no secrets, right? So, I'm a Mexican from Mexico. Got here in the going into the 7th grade that summer, right? And I came, by the way, I came illegally into this country twice. The first time, my mom attempted through California, border town called San Isidro next to TJ, right there in Cali, and she got us over through a sewer canal the first time.
Wow.
My brother and I, and we went to a little town called Escondido, and I attended most of the 2nd grade there. And then, within a year's time, it was like 8 to 10 months, we were just out of finances. It wasn't, that state at that time wasn't the right time or fit for my mom and her, her 2 kids. So we went back to Mexico, and I was, I was pretty distraught, man, super discouraged, right? Because my mom, prior to bringing us over the first time, she left us with our grandma for 2 years, right? She left us there. Hey, can you watch my kids for 2 years, et cetera, et cetera.
And she came to the United States in order to work?
She came to the States, and she was working the fields, and then she received her paperwork, her green card, through Amnesty, and then she went back and got us, and my mom was so gangster that she crossed us over herself the first time. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and she didn't want to lose her residency, so what she did was she put on a pair of socks, boom, she took her green card, put it right in between that pair, and then boom, put another pair of socks. So she was very strategic with what she was doing. Anyway, she got us over, we failed, went back to Mexico, and then I started bagging groceries for a living, and I had just learned enough English to where now I'm bagging groceries for American people, because the store that I was bagging groceries at was next to a resort called San Carlos. So my mom we used to take the same bus to work as a 3rd grader, right? She used to take it down to the resort. I used to get off about 20 minutes prior and get off at, it's called La Ley, which is a retail store where I would bag groceries. So we had a plan. My mom was like, hey, because she knew how discouraged I was, she was just like, hey, don't worry about it. We're gonna get some money together, and we'll go back to the United States of America. So sure thing, my mom was making about $30 cleaning hotel rooms, and I was making about $10 to $12 a day bagging groceries, because I spoke enough English to be nice and kind and serviceable to Americans. Sure thing, we saved enough money. She left us down there for another year and a half, and this time she paid a coyote, a human smuggler, $25 to get me through a hole in the fence in Nogales, Sonora, which is the border of Arizona. So, and then in '97 we started my paperwork process, and then I became I got a work permit first, early 2000s, and then I got a permanent residency a year later after my work permit, and then in 2012 I became a citizen of this country, and it's one of the hardest things, but the most amazing things in my life, earning my citizenship, earning my spot in this country. And then in 2013, thank you,
Proud of you, buddy.
Thank you. And people wonder, like, oh, yo, dude, why are you so pro-America? Pro-America? I'm like, because I've lived in another country, and we escaped, poverty, and we made the sacrifices, and then, we paid our penalties and went through the paperwork process, And here we are. 2012 got my citizenship. 2013, I started real estate wholesaling. Read a little $10 book by a guy named Nick Ruiz out in Wisconsin. It says, hey, you can have financial freedom, accomplish all your goals and dreams, right? Become a millionaire in real estate, and you don't need any money, which I didn't have. You don't need any credit. Okay. You don't need any credit, which I had, but it was my debt to income ratio at that time was like, you're not going to get anything, yep. Right? And you don't need a real estate license. So I was like, man, I fit that criteria. Yeah. And I did everything. I believed in this wholesaling thing so much that, this book told me to go put out 100 bandit signs on a Friday night at 11 p.m. I was putting out 120 to 150 for 6 straight months. And 2,400 bandit signs later, and then I got my first real estate wholesale deal, and then my life changed forever after that.
Dude, why do you think more people don't just... Do you think they know too much than to just blindly follow the advice of mentors and people that have had the success before? Do you think there's just there's too much noise out there and they talk about the fake gurus and all that stuff? But and listen, there's some people who I think maybe have bad values. They're successful, but maybe don't have good values. Yeah. But the information, I've learned just as much from bad gurus as I've learned from good gurus, right? I've learned also that I don't want to be like that bad guru, right? Yeah. And so, but I feel like I didn't know enough to be too cynical about pursuing the opportunity, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. And I didn't know, I was dumb enough to be like, yeah, hey, this sounds like a good thing. I could pursue this. I love that. I can do this work, right? But I wasn't jaded by the real world, where I feel like as you're in the real world longer, you're like, that would never work. That would never work for me, or anything. Are you what kind of perspective have you seen in your coaching and why people don't have more success earlier on?
So look who's crushing it in today's business world. A lot of young people, right? Because they're still they haven't been jaded yet,
right?
Thank God, right? A lot of people, a human being reaches its entire internal construct by the time they're 35 years old. Yeah. Who you are at 35 is who you're gonna be until you die, for the most part, 99% of the time, right? So if you think about that, and you're trying to start late, yeah, there's so many things now, that bad indoctrination and that bad programming and that belief system now is completely jaded. That's why these young people have so much more of an advantage, because they still believe.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I agree. I think it's, I've seen the exact same thing. They just, I don't know. It's what's the worst case scenario? I go back to living on I'm already living on my mom's couch,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. I'm already living in the basement. So it's they have nothing to lose. And the reality is, they say business is risky. Dude, you know what's really risky is not pursuing,
100%.
Right? Not pursuing your dreams, not leaving your retirement, leaving your future in the hands of the government. That to me is risky. Leaving your hands or leaving your future and your retirement in the hands of some faceless corporation that doesn't know who you are, doesn't care about you, and all you are is just a number on a spreadsheet that will quickly be cut out as soon as they get acquired or have to scale back on overhead, right? That to me is risky, right? Buying a piece of real estate to me is not risky. Look at how many people have either made money in real estate or preserved wealth in real estate. And so I think that's a key point and understanding for people to get. Because
why do you think I asked you to speak at our Freedom event, right? Because no matter where you are in your life, whether you're a dentist, right? Whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a business owner in the solar space, in the medical space, right? Everyone needs to learn how to accumulate wealth. And doing what you do specifically is, in my opinion, probably the best way. It's the best route, right? Through real estate, for multiple reasons.
If there was a better way to preserve and make money, I'd be doing it, right?
Exactly.
You and I are students of personal finance.
Yeah, if it was jets, if it was, right, if it was trains, right? But it's real estate.
And that kind of brings me to what we were talking about offline before we started filming, which is there's a lot of value in taking, I got one of my buddies, Matt, here, who has a beverage company, and he's scaling, dude, in 18 months, he got a $20 million valuation from zero. You can't do that in real estate though,
No.
right? Like you could take a $5 million property and make it worth $6 or $7 million in 18 months, but you can't make it worth $20 million, let alone come from zero and make it worth 20. So I do believe there's like if you're building wealth and you're looking to build, like you need a business
Yep.
and you need real estate, right? I think you
100%.
need both of those things because the business will generate cash and then the real estate will preserve it and give you the tax advantages and give you the long-term wealth building.
Yes.
So you need both of them, and that's one of the things that you guys are getting heavy into is buying businesses.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about why, and then I want to dive deep and get tactical for the viewers on how you find these businesses,
Yep.
how you underwrite and what you look for in these businesses, how you fund them, right? And then what it looks like to operate, stabilize, and then what does the exit strategy look like? So we'll
100%.
hit on those as we go along, but tell me a little bit about what attracted you to businesses.
So, two things, Ron. You were talking earlier about not taking a risk, right? And a lot of it is, you know, like you said, people are skeptical or they're just fearful, right? But everybody out there that's watching this or listening to this, they have to understand that if you don't sacrifice for what you want becomes the sacrifice, if that makes any sense,
Great point.
right?
It's a great.
So if you don't,
Write that down.
if you don't sacrifice for what you want, I knew what I wanted for me and my family, right? And I was willing to put my life on the line for that, and I believe that's why I succeeded. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If you don't sacrifice for what you want will become the sacrifice. You will not be able to retire your wife like I did in 2016,
Yep.
retire your mother like I did in 2017. You will not be able to do those things. You will not be able to buy your dream home, buy your wife her dream car, buy your dream car, right? I mean, send your kids to monastery school or homeschool them. You will not be able to do all of those things because you're too fearful and you're not willing to take a risk. You're not willing to roll the dice on yourself with this one life that you have to give. You know what I mean? Now, the other point that you made about buying real estate, well, no matter who's out there listening or watching, you have to understand, you know, your goal should always be to turn, you know, to take that active income and invest it into something that's going to generate passive income.
Agreed.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Until maybe one day, God willing, it completely replaces your active income to the point where you make a complete transition and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to dedicate myself to doing this full time.
Yep.
Right? Which is what happened with me. And that's what people need to understand out there is there's multiple types of, you know, becoming wealthy. And one of them is, yeah, active income is a way in some way, but it's tough, right? But your passive income is what's really going to set you up for your, even when you know, past retirement, even for the next generation. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And if you get really good at doing all these things, then there's another type of income. What's it called? Interest income, right? Where you're lending money and you're making money on interest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
Exactly. You become the bank. So, and that's the goal, you know, to get there eventually, God willing. But no, man. I mean, everything you're doing and everything you're saying, it hits right on for anybody out there listening. And for me, you know, I started with real estate, but I'm an entrepreneur, you know, at heart. You know, I'm
Right.
not.
I think a
I'm
lot
not
of people
one
like,
vehicle kind
oh,
of guy.
hey, Carlos is a real estate guy. Tim's a real estate. No, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business guy. Real estate happens to be the widget, right? And it's a great way to build wealth, but it's just a product, right? Like we look at other opportunities, and I'm invested in multiple businesses. I own multiple businesses that are not real estate businesses, in addition to all the commercial real estate that I own as well, right? And those businesses generate cash that I live off of, and then I take that and I invest it into the real estate, and then the real estate builds long-term wealth, right? And that's one of the things that you guys are doing. You guys are looking heavily at businesses. Tell me a little bit about some of the businesses that you recently bought.
I'll tell you.
And then I want to hear about like how you found them, and like, let's dive into it.
I'll tell you how it started for us. By July of 2016, we, thank God, we're already making a good amount of money in real estate, right? And I remember the first thing we did with that money was we were like, you know what? Why don't we start trying to look to acquire before we even knew what private equity was, right? And sure thing, in 2017, we started launching a couple of software companies, you know, needtoskip.com and investorautomation.com, et cetera. And then in late 2017, we built out we built out and bought out Call Geeks, which is a BPO company. Go ahead.
And I think the thing to understand here, and I have you speaking at my summit this week, right, about how you've scaled into multiple businesses all at once, because it's not, you're in what, you have 30 companies or something?
No,
crazy?
we used to have 31. Now we're consolidated down to 12.
Okay. So I think that's an important message I'd like to kind of close out with that of like why you're doing that. But before is like the 3 companies you've just named are all adjacent to what you were already doing.
We call it vertically integrated.
Right. But yeah, exactly. And it's things that you're already spending money on in your primary business.
Yes.
And you're looking at the line items of where I spend my money, and you're like, oh, I can reduce my cost or make money off of myself if I bring that in-house. And I think that's a brilliant place to go, because a lot of people are like, oh, I need to get into some business. And they come across a business that has nothing to do with their skill set,
their primary vehicle,
or what they know they know how to do. And they're like, oh, well, I drink cocktails, I should go open a cocktail bar, right? Or I should go, open a car dealership.
Worst thing you can do.
No, I think the best way to think about how are you going to find a business is to look at the profit and loss of what your current business is, and where are you spending 6 figures a year?
Yep.
And how can you bring that in-house and then vertically integrate all these different things with your business?
Great perspective, brother. Absolutely. And that's what we did, right? Data company, skip tracing company. Now we have a company that we built from the ground up. It's called prospectx.com, right? It's an all-in-one CRM. So what it does is, not only is it a CRM, right? But it aggregates data, it skip traces data, it gives you all your KPIs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But again, it's vertically integrated with what our primary business was, which is real estate, right? So example, for anybody out there that's full-time doing multifamily, right? Or full-time doing single family, why don't you start with a construction company? And then maybe an inspection company, and maybe a title company, right? Something that's vertically integrated that can work cohesively in an ecosystem that you can control, right?
Yeah, you look at all the different things you're spending money on in commercial real. It's like property management is one that you should bring in-house pretty quickly. Construction management, project management, like you mentioned, is one that you should bring in-house fairly quickly. Acquisitions, instead of going through brokers or waiting on that, maybe you bring that in-house, right? An investment fund, right? You bring that instead of paying some investment fund or paying different types of fees to people to go and find you money.
You can monetize.
Exactly.
Right?
There's so many different layers of it.
Yeah, you can. What a lot of people in the business world call those, they're called profit centers, right? You just add different profit centers to what you're already doing,
Yeah.
So I totally encourage that.
So you just acquired a couple of different businesses. Some of these you grew from the ground up, right? Like I grew my education, you grew an education business from the ground up. I am growing a software business. You've grown multiple software businesses from the ground up, but you've also bought some businesses, right? I bought into a social media marketing company at the beginning of this year, and brought not just financial capital, but intellectual capital, right? Relationship capital to that deal, and I was able to bring more value and get more equity because of the additional insights and knowledge that I had in that business. And you're doing similar things with some other companies. So I know you were consulting with a solar business. I know you were consulting with another company, and that ended up turning into an opportunity to then buy into them, right?
Absolutely. So, what we don't do any coaching anymore, right? We don't do any coaching anymore. We did coaching from 2018 to 2022. And I'm very happy that we were able to help so many people, right? I mean, if you take a look at some of the people that we've helped, right? Like the
players,
Tiffany Highs and the Eric Kleins and the, the Keith Everetts and the Terry Thayers and the Terry Summers. I mean, the list goes on and on. Austin Rutherford. Yeah. We helped a lot of those folks, build out, good businesses, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was just like, man, this is quite a hamster wheel. You pay me $50K and I help you build a 7-figure a year business. I said, and I told Sal, I said, hey brother, I don't really want to do that anymore. I think we served, I think we served, right? We put in our work, we put in the time. So I said, I'm only going to either do consulting or consulting for equity. Yeah. Right.
And that's what I was going to say. That's, I think, the next level for a guy like you is like, hey, the fee income's cool, but I know how much value I can bring to your business, and I know how much I can help you scale this business, and I know how much money you're going to make. And I like you, and I like what you stand for. I like your core values. I think we align very well. Why don't I consult for equity, right? Hey, you're making $150,000 a year right now. Yep. You make the first $150,000 a year. We split everything 50-50 above that. Like,
yes. Yes.
That's a hard deal for anybody to turn down.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a great opportunity for you to come in, say, I don't want anything of what you're already making.
Yep.
Let me bring my value and let me take you to $1 million a year in
Yep.
income, and then it creates an extra $850 a year from me also.
Yes.
And I think it's an awesome opportunity, and I think it's such a no-brainer for anybody who has that offer made to them as well.
Well, think about it this way, right? There was a construction company that we might acquire, and some of these companies, right? There's multiple ways to acquire a lot of these companies. There's, you know, you really do acquire and you buy them out, right?
Yep.
And in many cases, it's competitors.
Yep.
Think about it, right? Like the first place to look is your competition.
Yep.
You know, someone that's smaller than you.
That's a great point.
Right? You go in there and you're like, man, these people haven't really departmentalized their company. Their people need a lot of leadership. It lacks leadership. It lacks management. You know, it lacks training, etc. Right? The infrastructure could, they're probably 25% there. That's the first place that you might want to make an offer.
Yep.
Because you already know what you can do. You got these smaller competitors, smaller companies, and you see the huge gap, right? You're like, hey, how about I give you, $1 million or whatever your EBITDA is times 3 or times 5 or whatever, whatever that specific industry is paying. You know what I mean? When selling a business, and the perfect example is we already had a medical company, right? National Medical Surplus. And then we bought out this other company, a guy named Adam, for $315,000, right? $315,000, a smaller competitor. Boom. That was in 2019 that we bought that guy out, right? And then
and the key there is really you're eliminating.
He was a one-man show, by the way.
You're eliminating competition.
Yes.
Right. So you're like, hey,
Yep.
we're driving our prices down because you're coming in and undercutting us. So you're like, let's get him out of the way. Or it's maybe he has a client list that then you can serve better or have ancillary services above and beyond what he offers, and you can monetize those clients a little bit better.
Well, think about it, right? We have an infrastructure that, people like that, in many cases, plumbers, solar guys, HVAC guys, right? People in the medical field, they're owner operators.
Yeah.
They're a one-man show. And they're
96% of businesses, by the way, 100%. Are under $1 million businesses.
And they're so busy, right? They're so busy and occupied with the day-to-day stuff as an owner-operator. They are the bottleneck. They cannot grow their business.
Bro, it's why masterminds exist, right? Because there's nowhere to learn how to scale your company like that. You're right.
They don't have infrastructure. They don't have a marketing department that's gonna predictively and consistently generate leads.
Yep.
They don't have a sales department that's going to consistently convert, right? They don't have a finance department that's going to be, going to be doing
real-time reporting.
Exactly. Profits, P&Ls and projections, forecasts, etc. They don't have an HR department that's going to do all the hiring and interviewing for them. They don't have these departments. You know what I mean? We have these departments, and that's why it's very easy and it's very appealing for a lot of companies when we're attempting a merger, because they're 5-10 years away from that. So they're like, well, we plug in with you, we'll go ahead and scale that, right? And that's exactly what just happened with the company that we merged with, a company called Zealous Energy. They were, it was 2 owner operators, 2 CEOs, and about 12 sales reps, right? They saw what we had to offer. First they came and they paid us for consulting, and then that consulting turned into a merger, right? Why? Because the first thing that I look at is if I'm gonna merge, I look at the owner operator.
For sure.
That's it. I'm like,
dude, I'm always betting on the jockey, not the horse.
100%. I'm looking at this person. Do we align in principles and core values, right? Right? Does this guy have the work ethic?
Yeah.
Is this guy a drug addict, right? I mean, you look at all those factors, and then you're like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and bet on this guy, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to bet on the owner operator. And then you start to look at everything else, right? Like, what's the income potential on this thing? If we do it right, if we plug all this in, you start taking a look at that, at what the potential of that company is.
Yep. And so when you acquire these properties, when you acquire these businesses, are you buying it with cash? Are you buying in with cash, or are you getting seller financing, or are you having them roll their equity into your business?
There's 3 different ways, right? Actually, probably more than 3 ways. One, the easiest one is obviously just acquiring it straight, just buying them out, and then maybe some of the C-suites, they stay on for 6 months to a year on a handoff, on a transition, right? So you got that way. The other way is obviously like consulting for equity, right?
Yep.
And that when you're consulting for equity, it'll be a small, like a minor share, but it's still you having all these multiple companies, which is great. And then obviously the other way is, and then there's also sweat equity, which we're not doing a lot of that anymore. But the other way would be, hey, this is what I have to offer, my infrastructure.
Yep.
I don't want, if you're making 150K as a solar organization a month, I won't touch that. I want my 50% equity from where we grow.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I agree, man. I think that's an easy no-brainer for anybody who's kind of plateaued in their business. They're trying to figure out, how do I get to that next level, to come in and find somebody who's willing to consult and bring their financial and intellectual and relationship capital to the business, and then take them to the next level, right? Like, that's a no-brainer because they've already plateaued. They can't go anywhere with the resources and the knowledge that they have right now. How do they get to the next level?
Well, most of those companies, if you take a look at their P&Ls for the past 1-3 years, right? All their financial statements, they're like, dude, you've been at like 3 million for 3 years.
They're stagnated, right?
Exactly. So what's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, it's been 3 years and you're stuck at 3 million. Something has to change because nothing changes if nothing changes, right? And that's when you sell them based off of that. Hey, you sell them based off of growth, And you can sign multiple operating agreements, or you can have an intricate operating agreement that says, if I can't deliver what I said I'm going to deliver, then this dissolves. You know what I mean? So there's so many different ways to get involved.
So what's the end game? Like, what's the play? You're consolidating down to 12 companies. First, tell me why, and then let's get into what does the end game look like for you?
So what I wanted to tell you is the 12 companies that I mentioned, those are companies that we built from scratch. We had, at one point, we had 31 companies. We consolidated the companies that we built from scratch into 12 companies. But, right, we're a part of Puppies and Coffee, 30%. Skinny Pasta, I think it's 15%, right? Zealous Equity, 50%. So we do have other companies that, that's not the 12 companies.
Got it, got it. Yep.
So I wanted to make that
12
clear.
primary businesses.
Yeah, of our own.
You have investments in all these other different companies.
Yes, as a venture capitalist or whatever you want to call it, right? But the end game for me, brother, is I want to build to exit. Like, I just want to build to exit. If something is really worth, keeping for a very long time, then I'll do it. But for the most part now, my head is, hey, 3 to 5 years, maybe 7 years max. If I can't do that with the company, then I probably don't even want to touch it, if that makes any sense. And the other thing that I look at, by the way, is what we said earlier, is the earning potential of a company, right? Example, why would I put time, effort, and money or energy into a construction company that has a income cap of $10 million when I can get into the software company that has an income cap of $100 million?
Yeah, the multiple on it is so much bigger.
Exactly.
And I think, as I grow businesses and as I look to potentially exit businesses, I look at a lot of people who are like, oh, I wouldn't sell, I'm not selling for that number. I think I can get more. Dude, if you're a true entrepreneur, I think there's always another deal. There's always another opportunity. There's always something else that you can build. And I think if you have the opportunity to take some chips off the table, man, like the likelihood of selling your company for tens of millions, if not like let alone hundreds of millions of dollars, is so infinitesimal that, like, when that opportunity comes along, dude, fucking sell and then go do it again 3 years later after your non-compete goes away. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's so short-sighted, and like people have this, I don't know, this heavily weighted psychology on, hey, here's why I can't sell my business, because I've invested so much of my own time and effort and energy into it. Well, it's like, dude, sell it. If you have a tranche of capital of $60 million, you could go build 10 of those companies, right? You bootstrap for no money because you have the experience, you know the people in the industry, and now you have the capital backing you, that you know exactly where to place it and what, which horse to bet it on that's going to move the lever that much more, So it's like, dude, I think if you have the opportunity to exit, man, you fucking exit every single time,
A lot of these guys, I mean, think of PayPal, right? Elon Musk, think of when he built that.
And the shit, all of it has a shelf life that ends up going into the drain anyways, So it's like, dude, for you to think that you're building a business, especially in tech or whatever, that gets cycled out all the time, somebody's going to come up with something better, cooler, faster, cheaper, whatever. It's like, exit, take your cash off the table, whoever buys it's probably going to run it into the ground anyways, likely, and then go and do it again in some other, vertical of what you already know.
Well, let me blow your mind, right? I got a buddy out in California. He has a company called Next Gen HVAC, right? His name is Ismael Valdez. I apologize. Right, this guy. He sold his company. Yep, this guy sold his company for $204 million, brother.
That's awesome.
5 years.
How much did he own?
5 years.
What percentage did he own of it?
He owned it 100%.
Really?
He sold his company, right? I said, hey, I didn't sell for 100 million yet. I haven't sold any company for 100 million. He's like, 204 million. 5 years in California, brother. A HVAC company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
$204 million, sold it to a bigger fund that just acquired it. And that's what happens. If you do something right for a good amount of time, right, and you structure it correctly, someone's going to come in and they're just going to make you a stupid offer that you can't refuse.
Yep.
Because that company, whether it's what, BlackRock or all these huge companies, is it BlackRock or Blackstone?
Yeah, both.
One of them, right? Yeah, they're going to come in.
BlackRock's more investment fund, but
they have a preferred rate of return promised in different places that they look at your company and they're like, well, it meets the minimum for us. We need to do this, right?
Well, and it's like the same reason why you buy smaller businesses. Mm-hmm. They're doing the same thing, just at the $1 billion level. They're like, oh, well, hey, we're spending $100 million a year on HVACs for all of our different properties in the California area. Why don't we just go buy an HVAC company and keep it all inside, right? It's just, dude, it's different levels of this stuff, right? It's like we got 8-figure businesses trying to buy 7 and 6-figure and scale those up. Yep. They have $1 billion businesses trying to buy $100 million businesses.
$204 million.
Exactly, man. So what is this has been an awesome combo, man. I want to kind of bring it all home. Like, what does the next 12 to 24 months look like for you?
You know, brother, just keep building. I'm a creator by heart, you know. I'm a creator who happens to be in the business world, right? A lot of the companies that you see, National Cash Offer, Call Geeks, All In Nation, company called Property that we just launched with Chris Crone, right? That one's amazing. A lot of the companies that you see, I just create them here. You know, I create them here, and that's it. I'm an artist. You're an artist, but we're artists. We're executing our, what do you call that? Our artistry, right?
Yep.
In the game of business. That's it. So for me, I just want to continue, brother. I don't know if I'll ever retire because I feel like I'm already retired. You know what I mean? Like I have the most freedom that I've ever had.
You can do this till you're 110 years old, man.
Yeah, and what man doesn't like to go out and hunt buffalo? You know what I mean? Right? Yeah. So I'm out hunting buffalo every single day, man. And for me, that's just what it is. For me, it's about growth. Like I am addicted to growth in every area of my life.
Yep.
And that's what it's going to be until the day I die.
I love it, man. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm in the same boat, man. I don't think that there's, and I like the startup phase too, right? Like I think as soon as things get boring and corporatized, I'd rather sell and then just hold a piece of equity as somebody else scales it, because I just like the beginning stage. I love bootstrapping things. I love dude, let's go. And it's hard, right? It's hard. It's not easy. But I like that phase, and I'm really good at taking something from $1 million into the 8-figure, right? 7 figures, the 8-figure range, and I think you can get some good multiples there, and then exit, right? And so that's been my play too. But dude, it's really cool to see the good guys and how we've all grown, right, over the past just 5 to 10 years. And can you imagine what the next 5 to 10 years looks like, man?
Whatever God has in store for us, brother. Dude. God willing, yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate you,
Thank
man.
You,
You're always bringing a ton of heat. Make sure you're following this guy because he's an absolute rock star and just a great person as well, right? Not just an awesome business person, but a great person. So appreciate you, bro. Thanks for spilling on beans.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for spilling the beans.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, hey, hopefully you guys got a ton of value out of that episode of Spilling the Beans. You know, we do this for you in order to create as much value as possible, so that way you can see what it's like to be a fly on the wall when entrepreneurs and high-level business owners are yay, to Spilling the Beans. When high-level business owners are sitting there over a cup of coffee, talking about life, talking about business, talking about the things that are important, and how to have success in all different facets of your life. So if you got some good value out of this, please do me a favor, like the video like Annabelle does, subscribe, share it with some friends who you think would get some value out of it. Until next time, I'll see you on Spilling the Beans.